Early in 2024, deep-sea explorers deployed sonar 16,000 feet below the Pacific surface and spotted a distinct, plane-shaped anomaly. Global headlines immediately declared the 87-year-old mystery of Amelia Earhart finally solved. But closer acoustic analysis revealed the truth. The shape lacked the twin engines of Earhart's Lockheed Electra. It was a natural rock formation on the ocean floor. Over nearly 9 decades, marine expeditions have spent millions of dollars scanning the abyss near her intended destination. They have recovered nothing. To understand what actually happened to aviation's most famous missing pilot, we have to bypass the sensational deepwater headlines and look at the physical, documented evidence she left behind. On July 2, 1937, Amelia Earhart and navigator Fred Noonan were staring down a critical fuel shortage over the vast Pacific Ocean. They were attempting a 2,550-mile flight from New Guinea to Howland Island. At 8:43 a.m., the cutter Itasca received Earhart's final transmission. She stated they were navigating on a calculated line of position. "We are on the line 157337. When the plane failed to arrive, the U.S. government concluded they simply ran out of gas, crashed into the open water, and sank immediately to the bottom. But that immediate sinking presents a glaring technical contradiction. For days following her disappearance, radio operators stationed all across the Pacific continued to hear her distress calls. The absence of a confirmed wreck spawned dozens of alternative explanations. The most prominent claims Earhart and Noonan crash-landed in the Marshall Islands, where they were taken prisoner by the Japanese military and transferred to Saipan. Proponents of this theory frequently point to an undated photograph discovered in the National Archives. The image purportedly shows Earhart sitting on a dock in Duluth Harbor under Japanese watch. That specific piece of evidence fell apart when researchers traced its origin. The image was actually published in a Japanese travel book in 1935, 2 full years before Earhart's flight. Furthermore, reaching the Marshall Islands required Earhart to reverse course with an almost empty fuel tank, flying hundreds of miles northwest against her established navigational line. The espionage and prisoner narratives offer cinematic intrigue, but they fail basic chronological and navigational tests. Geographically, the official crash and sink model remains the most logical outcome for a plane starving for fuel near Howland Island. The U.S. Navy launched a massive search effort to find them, deploying the aircraft carrier USS Lexington to scour 250,000 square miles of ocean. They found no oil slicks, no floating debris, and no life rafts. Simultaneously, tracking stations recorded over 120 post-loss distress messages. The Navy triangulated these signals and deemed at least 57 of them highly credible. The Lockheed Electra possessed a strict physical limitation. Its radio transmitter required battery power, and to keep the battery charged, the right engine had to be running. If the plane was submerged in water, the electrical system would short out entirely. To broadcast those 57 credible signals over several days, Earhart had to land the Electra intact, on dry land, where she could run the engine. Projecting Earhart's final 157 to 337 line southeast past Howland Island intersects directly with Nikumaroro, an atoll featuring a flat reef exposed at low tide. 7 days later, Navy planes flew over this atoll, reporting signs of habitation, but assuming islanders lived there, dispatched no search party. 3 years later, British colonists settling the island made a startling discovery. They found a partial human skeleton on the southeast edge of the atoll, alongside the remains of a campfire, dead birds, and turtle bones. A medical official in 1940 briefly examined the bones, declared them to belong to a stocky male, and the physical remains were subsequently lost. But decades later, forensic physical anthropologists ran the doctor's original measurements through modern profiling software. The updated analysis indicated the skeleton most likely belonged to a European female, approximately 5 feet 7 inches tall. Subsequent archaeological digs at the site uncovered highly specific 1930s artifacts. Researchers excavated a shattered mirror, traces of cosmetic rouge, a jar of freckle cream, and a cat's paw shoe heel matching the size and style Earhart wore. They also recovered the remnants of a wooden sextant box. The box bore the stamped numbers 1542 and 3500, identifiers consistent with the Brandis Mavie surveying sextant known to be used by Fred Noonan as a backup instrument. We do not have the complete fuselage of a Lockheed Electra, but this specific site on Nikumaroro holds an overwhelming concentration of forensic, physical, and archival evidence indicating they survived the initial landing. The historical data points to a harrowing timeline. They landed safely on the dry reef and ran the engines to broadcast distress calls for days. They likely watched the Navy search planes fly overhead, unseen, before rising tides eventually dragged the Electra off the reef edge and into the abyss. This isolated ring of coral became a brutal prison. Their final days were spent fighting for survival against severe heat, lack of fresh water, and exposure. Historical research rarely provides a cinematic smoking gun. Without an engine block or a serial number, the Nikumaroro hypothesis relies on the sheer weight and intersection of multiple lines of evidence. Society tends to favor the instant finality of a deep-water crash or the intrigue of a wartime spy mission. It is psychologically difficult to accept that an iconic, trailblazing aviator met a slow, agonizing end as a castaway on a forgotten rock. The mystery of her sudden disappearance is what cemented Amelia Earhart as an enduring legend. But the scattered, fragmented artifacts of her desperate struggle on Nikumaroro are what make her profoundly human.